Hello everyone. Do you need video and audio? It's listening only, Stuart. Yes, it is listening only. Right, good evening everyone. It is about 7:30. It is exactly 7:30 actually on a Wednesday night here at Sportstest. And so it is a chance for me to catch up with you all and do my every other week webinars for you. So this evening we are looking at weight loss without losing performance. And a little bit of housekeeping to start with. So first of all, thank you for all coming along, much appreciated. Take a sigh of breath. It seems like the day hasn't stopped for me. Right, so a little bit of housekeeping for me. I'll sort of shut my chat box down in a minute, but please feel free to chuck stuff in the chat box if you want. But if you've got specific questions, I would much rather you posted them in the Q&A section. So from that, I can then see your questions, and then I can either wait and answer it later on at the end of the seminar, and we will have a question and answer session specifically at the end of the seminar. But if you raise a question that's useful as we go along, then very clearly I will try and answer it as we go along. So that's the whole point of what we're doing this evening. I want you to be able to shout up and ask questions as we go along, and hopefully that's helpful. A couple of things being put in the chat box. No, you can see and hear. Yes, so you should be able to see and hear me, but I can't see or hear you. So that's why I'm saying please use the chat box for just chat discussions. But actually what I'd rather you guys did was, if you've got questions, to post those questions in the Q&A section. Right, I'm going to take a deep breath at this point. We have got about 2 hours worth of material to cover. I want to try and cover it in about 45 minutes, so I'm going to cover it as quickly as possible. Firstly, thank you very much for one of my clients, Jason Hewitt, here posting, and I'm going to turn I've got another computer going, and needs the sound turned down on it. Thank you very much for Jason Hewitt here for letting me post this video of him, this photo of him, sorry. So this was Jason before he started training for triathlon. That was his first Staffordshire 70.3, whereas you can see by the time above his head, he finished in a 5:39. And since we've been coaching Jason, he's now lost even more weight, and he's now going sub 5 hours. So we can get your weight off without losing performance. And as you will find out later on as we go on, if we can get your weight off, we can actually gain and benefit you performance. So that is what tonight is going to be all about. I don't need to go into this in any detail, but that is me just over 5 years ago. It was 2015, just before World Champs. And I'm about 11 kilos lighter than I currently am today. So people look at me and think I'm not particularly fat at the moment, but that was me down at race weight, 11 kilos lighter. So my background is a PhD in exercise physiology, so on and so forth. I was accredited by British Association of Sport and Exercise Sciences, as well as a fellow of the American College of Sports Medicine. And a lot of my research included looking at nutrition, although I'm more of a physiologist. So I'm not a dietitian, and I'm certainly not qualified as a dietitian, but a lot of my work was done with research, with carbohydrate uptake, how that impacts on performance. And so that really is what I want to bring on tonight for you guys. And any of you that sat in on any of my webinars before will have seen this slide ad nauseum. So it's one of the first things that I look at. And yes, that was a Blythefield tri-stew. So it is one of the first slides that I look at with everyone, and it just gets you to think about what's going on. So realistically, if we look up here, the idea is to try and get you performing at your peak for competition. And really, the way that we're going to do that is to make sure your training's right. But if we don't get your nutrition right, then you're not going to be able to train properly. And we went over nutrition for training a couple of weeks back. So please head over to YouTube/Sportstest to find out what I had to say about pre, post, and during training nutrition and stuff about FTP and all those sort of factors. But what we're looking at tonight is really this nutrition component. Although it has an impact on your training, it has a direct impact on your competition. Not only what you do before and during the competition, but actually getting to the race in optimal weight. And so that's what the focus has got to be. And again, go through this performance model I use quite often. And I keep getting signs saying my internet is unstable, which is all I need tonight. It's hopefully weather related, because I've usually got no, Stu, it was you. My internet isn't brilliant. I am recording this, so if we do get the occasional dropout, you will be able to catch up, and I will just pause if I get them. So what we're looking at here, performance car, and critical factors: heart, lungs, muscle, engine size, type, and tuning. We've got psychological factors, we've got technique factors, we've got efficiency and aerodynamics. But this performance of this car is vastly underpinned by what the weight is. The lighter that car is, the better it can accelerate. The lighter that car is, the better it can climb. So that's really what we're looking to achieve at the moment. Mark has posted up lots of dropouts. Guys, I'm really sorry. I can't do anything about it. I've got really good Wi-Fi here at home, very, very good Wi-Fi. And I think tonight there is something going on in the local area that it's dropping out. So I will do my best. If it's that bad, I can only apologize. I am recording this live, so you'll have to watch it back when it goes live on YouTube tomorrow. So apologies. I will just press on and I won't answer any more questions about dropouts. It's all about understanding your priorities and getting your priorities right. And the typical cyclist, the typical triathlete that wants to go out and spend anything from 50 to 5,000 pounds on making their bike a little bit lighter, but is quite happy to compromise their body and doesn't want to spend a couple of £100 on looking after their body and sorting out their nutrition and taking care of themselves, is shooting themselves in the foot. They're completely lost the focus. So it's about getting the focus, and that's really what I'm going to look at tonight. So I'm really going to press on now. Feel free to shout up your comments. I need to just pull the Q&A back up. Oh, didn't want to move that. Sorry, guys. Tony, what do I think? Current trend, higher fat and protein periodization. Right, I'm going to answer. Tony Quinn's asked the question, which I am going to answer that later on. So I'm going to post that down there and keep going. So here we go. So you go out, you buy yourself the best shoes, you're going to spend 250 quid on a pair of shoes, but you're carrying too much body weight. Now, I understand if you can afford the components, if you can afford the kit, you go out and you buy yourself the best possible bike you can, the lightest bike you can. But again, if you haven't got the body to match it, whilst you're giving yourself a performance advantage, by actually doing something that isn't going to cost you a huge amount, by just focusing on what you're consuming and how you're consuming that, you are going to get much better performance enhancement than you are by misevaluating and spending stuff on kit that it's going to give you an advantage, but isn't going to give you an optimal performance. And that's really what I'm all about, is let's get your training to be smarter so that we really, really look and see what's going on. So we need optimal weight for climbing. You're carrying your body weight around, you're taking yourself up a hill, you're up a hill on a bike, you're running along, even on flat road, you are carrying your body weight. So every movement up and down, you carrying an extra couple of 100 grams is going to impact on your performance. And I'll throw this in now because my brain's just scrambled at the moment, but for every kilo that you can lose, if you are running a marathon, that is worth 2 minutes over marathon distance for every kilo that you're lighter. So that is absolutely crucial. Again, likewise for sprinting, you need to accelerate your body. It's about power to weight ratio. It's about how much power, how much force you can develop, and the lighter your body weight is, the better you can sprint. So this guy didn't have me on that day. I had him. Don't think there was probably much in it in terms of a body weight relationship. But again, if you want to sprint, it's about looking at your performance and pushing your body forward as best as you can without taking the bulk with you. Now, again, if we go to power sports, there's a different scenario going on there, because the guys will have a lot of mass behind them because they need that force, they need that power, and they're often running into objects or into other people. But where we're talking about endurance, it's about being lean in order to accelerate as best as we can. Optimal weight for... If we're carrying a layer of fat more than we need, it's a great layer of insulation. It's great for swimming the channel. Fine, great. It will keep you warmer. But actually, if we're generating a lot of body heat, and again, go back through my previous nutrition seminar that I spoke about a couple of weeks back. So go to YouTube, have a look at it on YouTube. If you go to my previous seminar, you'll see me talking about the energy cost for body weight and how we're looking at sweat loss. Now, if you've got a lovely layer of insulation, you're going to have to sweat more to dissipate your heat. So that can actually put you at a disadvantage because you can dehydrate faster. and you don't then tolerate changes in temperature as well. So if you're going to go and compete in a hot environment, or, you know, if I go all the way back and throw my mind back all the way to, I think it was 2006, I ran London Marathon and it was 23 degrees, 24 degrees, and I've been training in knee-deep snow all winter. We are in a situation there where your body can't cope if you're carrying more weight than you need to. So you're trying to reduce your energy cost. We're trying to use less energy to carry your body weight around, less energy to dissipate heat, less energy to sweat and regulate your body temperature. So all of these factors, it's crucial that as an endurance athlete, you have optimal weight. Then we look at just normal factors on a day-to-day point of view. It's about cardiovascular health. So how good your heart is, how good your lungs are, liver, kidneys, all functioning as well as it possibly can be, because you're not carrying all this excess body fat that your body doesn't need. So that's what we're trying to get towards. We're trying to get to health and performance. And just as a brief summary, and I'm going to flick through this. For those of you that haven't got it, go out and buy it. Go and get it from Amazon. Come and buy it from me. Go and get a copy of either my running book or my cycling book. And this is a table that I've got in there. So we're typically looking at an elite endurance athlete having a body fat in the range of around about 4 to 6%. So as an 80 kilo individual, they're carrying around about 4 kilos of fat with them. If we come to somebody that's at the other end of the classification down here, and that's medically at risk, they're not morbidly obese yet, but they're still medically at risk, we're now looking at a percentage body fat as a male of between 24 and 30%, and that same 80 kilo individual now is carrying around with them 22 kilos of fat. So that is a massive, massive difference. And that's what we're looking at. That is the crucial factor that we're looking at. And Tony Quinn has just said he's an elite athlete because he's 6%. I don't even believe he's 6%. I think he's probably about 3% when I last saw him. So again, it's a balance about what you need and about staying healthy. And again, for me, and I don't want to go into this tonight, but it's about getting to a race target and then having a healthy target. So, you know, as an elite endurance athlete, they might compete at somewhere between 4 and 6%, but they might live at 8 to 10%. And in the height of the winter, they might go 10 to 12%. As a normal individual, we're hopefully living somewhere around about 12 to 15%, and maybe getting somewhere around about 8% for our ideal, you know, performance. And it depends on who you are, what level you're competing at, and so on and so forth. So, you know, most people I'm trying to push to try and get them in this range here. And then when they start getting into the sport and they start really developing and really enjoying it, I'm trying to see if we can get them, you know, towards this 8 to 10%. And it's only when you're looking at going to international or elite competition that we want to try and drop a little bit lower than that. So, you know, that's what we're looking at the moment. Okay, so, and of course, those are values for males, not females. The female values are higher than that because they've got other bits on their body and they need a higher body fat to keep hormonal balance going and menstrual function going and all of those sort of things. So, cracking on. Weight management is a balancing act. If you want to maintain a stable weight, it's as simple as this. Energy intake equals energy expenditure. You will maintain your stable weight. Simple as. And it doesn't matter how you balance those two off. If you balance those two off properly, you will have a stable weight. Simple as. If you want to gain weight, you either increase your energy intake or you decrease your energy expenditure. So for me, the last however many weeks we've been in lockdown, I've very, very much significantly been increasing my energy intake because I'm right next to the biscuit cupboard, and I've been very, very significantly decreasing my energy expenditure because I've been on daddy daycare most of the time and not been able to train. So I've gained 5 kilos in the last 6 weeks, really not particularly good. So this today is about me doing what I'm telling you as well as everything else. And I need to get back on track. And I think it's really important that we get back on track. Right, somebody has put out, do I know what the percentages would approximately be for female athletes? Okay, yes, I do. And I really must change my slides, and that's a slap on the wrist for me. So as a female athlete, as a competitive athlete, we would say a female athlete, essential body fat is usually somewhere between about 8 and 12%. And as a competitive elite athlete, they're probably somewhere between 10 and 15%, depending on their discipline, depending on their sport. Generally, if I'm working with an athlete, I'd like a female athlete who is a good club level athlete, regardless of whether they're a runner, cyclist, triathlete. And I know Kane's on board because I saw him comment earlier. I don't know whether he's managed to get back in. It looks like our numbers are going up, which is brilliant. Now, obviously, if you're trying to strip down and, you know, achieve that competitive look, you know, from a bodybuilding type competition, then you're going to get, you know, you're going to get extremely lean. But as a normal, healthy weight for a female, generally, I wouldn't want most females to be lower than 15 to 18%. And what would be normal as a healthy range is usually about 22 to 30%. So if I go back a slide, and I probably just need to flick, and this has got too many screens open here. If I go back those slides here, that 24 to 30% as a male, you know, puts them really, really at high risk. And yeah, as a female, that would put them in a normal range. So hopefully, anonymous attendee, that has answered your question for you. Right, okay, so we can crack back on. Thank you for that. Really useful to get these inputs as we go along. So weight is about a balancing act. So energy intake goes up or energy expenditure goes down, or the balance happens and you're going to achieve weight gain. So quite simply, what we're looking for is we want to try and reduce energy intake, increase energy expenditure for you to achieve weight loss. So get out and train more, eat less. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone. As simple as that. And if only it was as simple as that, because there are so many other factors that we have to look at, and there are so many other factors that we've got to, you know, take into consideration. So what we're going to look at, let's going to go into this in a bit more detail. Do we really just want to eat less? And I'm bouncing around it tonight. I wish I could stand up and do this because I'm sort of on one of those days now. Do we really want to just eat less? No, it's not, in my mind, just about eating less, because if we don't get the balance of nutrients, our body's going to break down. So it's about getting the balance of nutrients right. It's about getting the macronutrients right. It's about getting the right levels of sodiums, potassiums, calciums. It's about getting the right amino acids in there. It's about all getting the right variety. I don't want to go into that tonight. Another question just popped up. What we got there? What do we think about faster cardio? Adiola, slow down. Adiola, I am going to come on to that later on. And I know a lot of you Nigerians do it, and I don't have a problem with it as long as it's not done too often. So we will come on to that later on. Again, chuck an idea of a food pyramid out here. A lot of people don't like this. A lot of people do. It's a bit historic. It's a bit dated, but it gives people an understanding of what's coming from where. So I'm going to skim over this one for tonight. We know, and the body doesn't really change, our resting energy requirements are around about 40% carbs, 40% fat, and about 20% protein. As a general, that's typically what our body needs at rest. And we can go through, and I did a whole load of slides about what we need pre and post exercise. So go back and listen to the webinar from about 4 weeks ago that's on YouTube. That at the moment matches our typical Western diet. So that's fine. Now, in a normal healthy diet, our food intake should equal our energy expenditure, as I showed you 4 or 5 slides ago, and that will mean our body weight will stay stable. As an athlete, I would be looking to suggest that as much as somewhere between 60 and 75% of your energy would come from carbohydrate, and that would be typically starchy or complex carbohydrate. And again, I know Kane's on board, and I know Kane goes to much lower components of this, and you know, for me as an endurance athlete, this works for my endurance athletes. I don't have many strength athletes, I don't have many power athletes, but I find that where we try and compromise on the carbs too much as an endurance athlete, my athletes will suffer, and they will suffer particularly when they get to doing threshold work, interval work, and where they're trying to climb, where they're trying to push hard, or where they're trying to do big volumes of training. And some of these guys are doing, I mean, there's quite a few of my Nigerians on tonight, but it's not unusual for them to be doing between 12 and 20 hours of training a week. So, you know, if you're doing those sort of volumes, we've got to get lots of carbs coming through. Typically, I would say that for an endurance athlete, we want somewhere between 12 and 15% of your dietary energy coming from protein. As a rule of thumb, we generally put that down as between 1 and 1.2 grams per kilogram body mass of protein. So at 80 kilos, I should be having 80 to 120 grams of protein a day. There is evidence out there that lighter endurance athletes will need up to 2 grams of protein per kilogram body mass per day. So don't be frightened to put a little bit more protein in there. But again, I'm in a delicate balance of not necessarily wanting to go mad with it. So Stuart's asked, athlete versus keen amateur, is there a specific breakpoint? No, I don't think there is. And I think it comes down to yourself, Stuart, and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve, and what level you're at. So at the moment I would say I'm doing probably no more than 3 to 5 hours of training a week, and so I'm a lot more lax with my diet. But as you start working with athletes that are doing many more hours, or I start working with athletes that are doing many more hours, we need to be in a situation where we need to make sure that athlete is getting everything that they need to, and just the total volume of training that they're doing, is an issue. And you also asked there about protein intakes for an older athlete, and again, define older. Where I got slated, didn't slate. Someone took the mickey of me, and I think Dan's online tonight as well. Where I call an older athlete, anyone over the age of sort of 35, 40. We're not 21 anymore, and yes, because your body takes more time to rejuvenate itself. Generally, there's some generalizations here. Takes more time to recover. We potentially might need more protein. And again, Mark, what defines a lighter athlete? Well, I would generally say, for what we're talking about here, as a female athlete, we're probably looking at female athlete 45, 50 kilos. And as a male athlete, anyone around about under 70, certainly 70, 75 kilos. Once we start getting to me, I wouldn't say I'm a light athlete at 80 kilos. So hopefully that answers both of those questions there for you guys. So I try and shut that I've answered these questions off. There we go. Okay, so, and then the remainder of your intake should come from fat. So that's what we're looking at. If you have a healthy, balanced diet, and I'm not going into that tonight, your micronutrient intake should be adequate. So your vitamins, your minerals, your salts, your potassiums, all of that should be adequate from a well-balanced, a diet with lots and lots of variety in it. We should be okay. So where do we start? How much do you need? And this is something that, I've got half a chapter in both of my books, my cycling book and my running book. But if you'd like me to do it, this can be done. It takes me 20 minutes, half an hour. I can do it for a fee, a very small nominal fee, where you let me know age, height, weight, body fat. If you haven't got your body fat, we'll have to go without that. Number of hours of what sports that you do, because we've got different calorific requirements, whether you're swimming, whether you're biking, whether you're running, whether you're strength training, whether you're riding a horse, and so on and so on and so forth. And what we do is we work from a calculation of resting metabolic rate. Then what we do is we then take in your daily requirements. So what your job is, how active you are you up and down ladders all day, you sat on your backside all day, what training you're doing. That's what your daily requirements are. Allied that to your sports, and we can get what you need. So how many calories do you need to feed your body to initially stay in its present shape? And that's your starting point. So that's where we start from. Once we know that, once we've made those calculations, and some of them are a little bit of guesstimates, but it actually gives us a better understanding of where we are, rather than going typical female needs X, typical male needs Y. It gives us a much better understanding of what you need as an individual. So the classic example I often use is, my wife next door is a 48 kilo distance runner, is going to have completely different needs and completely different requirements from a 120 kilo rugby player. So we look at it for you. Then we match those needs with your diet, and we start to balance. And if we're trying to achieve weight loss, we want to reduce your daily requirement by around about 15%. Now, 15% seems to be the magic number. If we reduce your body fat by much more than that, what we're then finding is that you will start to shut down your metabolism, you will hang on to excess weight, and you won't lose weight effectively, and you'll often struggle for performance, and you'll often struggle to recover. So that's something that we need to look at much more sensibly. Someone's now put something in chat, so I need to just check what that is. The problem with MyFitnessPal, Stuart, for me, so Stuart's asked, what's the challenge against doing this, against something compared to like MyFitnessPal? MyFitnessPal, it does it in a different way. And sometimes I think the values that it gives you are dubious, and sometimes the calorific values that you get back from your Garmin, if your heart rate's not reading properly or your power meter's not picking up properly, we can get some really crazy values in terms of the calories that you've expended. And so therefore the targets that we get for me are slightly out. Now, I still believe MyFitnessPal can be a great tool in terms of tracking what you're actually consuming and using that to get a much better understanding of where you need and where you're going wrong. But actually using the targets that it sets you, for me personally, I think it's wrong, and I'll come on to why we do that. Because what I'm trying to do is, if we can get, and I've now forgotten what my next slide is, so it might be that I've gone off this here, yes. So what I'm trying to do with the athletes that I work with is that if we get that target to be somewhere between 5 and 15% lower than their needs, we're trying to achieve weight loss at around about 0.4 of a kilo, a pound a week. Very, very slow weight loss to ensure that we're getting fat loss only, that we're not losing muscle mass, that we're not losing body water. So that's what we're trying to do. Now, the problem I've got with MyFitnessPal is that with MyFitnessPal, it tracks every day. So if you do a big day on a Sunday, you can eat absolutely loads. Then on your Monday, on your rest day, it gives you your basal rate only, and it doesn't give anything more than that. Then Tuesday, you start training hard again, you do an interval session, so your calorie expenditure is up through the roof. Now, what it's constantly doing is it's trying to undercut on each day, but you're bouncing up and down. So your body is always at a deficit. And in my mind, with that, again, you'll find that your metabolism starts to slow, and that you will actually, after a while, after the first 4 to 6 weeks, you'll struggle to lose weight effectively. If we have a stable, this is what a typical week looks like. And this is what your typical calorific intake is on a daily basis, every day for the next 7 days. Now, if on a Sunday you go out and you do a 3-hour training session, and you still match your needs, on a Sunday you finish the day and you want to eat cardboard because you are that starving, but your body has had to scavenge for everything it gets. On the Monday when you're not training, it feels like you're having a feast. And so because you're now having more calories than your body needs for that day, but you're actually repaying the deficit you've had from the previous day, it doesn't shut your metabolism down. So rather than having this constant match each day, match each day, match each day, match each day, we've got a stable that we're looking at through the week. But what we're doing is one day your training's up here, the next day your training's down there, you've got a day down here, up there, up there. So we've got a different situation to almost fool your body the whole time, that we're constantly trying to push the body forward. So Tony's just suggested it's beneficial to throw in a refeed day. Yes, I totally agree that. You have a reduced training day where you eat well, you allow your body to compensate, you allow your body to eat well. And I know Kane does this with the guys that he works with. And I know Kane, I'm not sure you're online, you haven't chatted anything up for a little while, so maybe you've not been able to join us back. But he will say to his athletes, right, here's your targets, this is what you eat, this is your regimented breakfast, mid-morning stack, lunch, mid-afternoon, evening, that's what you eat for your regimented week. But you'll get your 1 day off, you'll get your bonus meal, you get your, which is almost like your refeed. So that concept of having that refeed day allows your body to then just push what it needs. Right, okay, Louise has just said sometimes she really struggles to eat and drink within a daily limit if she's had a long bike ride, 4 hours plus, due to the amount of energy drink. She needs to continue for basic carb requirements plus recovery drinks. So it's normal food really to be reduced on those days. I think no, it's a delicate balance, Lou. I think when you're starting to talk about 4-hour rides, 5-hour rides, 6-hour rides, you're putting the body into such deficit that you probably can go over your targets. So I wouldn't be quite so concerned about that. But what we've got to look at, and I know you've done this in the past and it's worked really well for you in the past, and you've seen massive weight loss as a result of it. So it is that delicate balance, and everything needs to be tweaked for everybody, really. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding on there. Right, someone else has posted up. Yeah, okay, sorted. Right, okay, so moving on. But for me, it's not just about your calories, it's about the nutrients. Because if it was just about my calories, if I could go out and consume 2,500 calories a day, I would be straight down to the cake shop, followed by a trip to the sweet shop, followed by 2 litres of Coca-Cola. So it's about looking at nutrients rather than just counting calories. So it's breaking those nutrients down into terms of what you need for your body, for the training that you're doing. And again, please go back. And I know we had a bit of a mess up last week with a double webinar. Please, again, go back to the YouTube video that I've posted on what the numbers mean and understand what I can tell you from coming in for a sports test. The level of detail that we can give you about what your body is doing, the calories you're burning, where the fat's coming from, how much carbs are being burned, how many grams of fat are being burned, what your efficiency is doing, is absolutely crucial to you getting your body weight absolutely right. Reduce your fat intake. Well, there's a no-brainer in my mind, and I don't want to open up the high fat, low carb debate here. I am talking to you guys as a group of athletes, and as a group of athletes, as you're exercising, and I'll show you shortly, you are predominantly stripping out carbohydrate. And if you don't break that carbohydrate, if you don't replenish that carbohydrate, you then start stripping out muscle mass. And we are out to do this, to build or at least sustain or maintain our muscle mass, not to strip our muscle mass out. So, and when we're particularly looking, as I've got here, all these unhealthy fats, if we can reduce our fat intake down and feed the body good carbs, still have good fat intake, but reducing it down, reduce non-essential fats, reduce synthetic fats down, we are in a much better, much healthier situation. And the tips that I would normally have to look at how we do this, and I just need to move some stuff out of the way because I can't read all my notes here. First of all, reduce the use of butters, margarines on sandwiches or toast. Go without it, and it really doesn't take long before you notice a difference. One of the things that I'm doing, and I'm not doing it at the moment, but certainly when I try and reduce my weight, is I'll cut toast out completely because then I don't need the butter on it. If I'm making sandwiches, what I tend to do is I will tend to have sandwich spread on as opposed to putting butter on, because again, quantity for quantity, there's far less fat in it. Again, likewise, consume lower fat milk. The difference between 2 and 4% is small. If you drink a litre of milk, that is 20 grams in a day. If we're targeting, again, typical healthy male, minimum fat intake of 40 to 60 grams a day, and you've had 20 grams of fat from milk, well, you should actually be trying to get that 20 grams of fat from actually naturally, and it is natural in the milk, but from a variety of different places. We want to lose low fat or fat-free salad dressing. Ideally low-fat cooking methods, so avoid frying. If possible, we grill, we bake, we steam. And if we do fry, and what we've actually gone out and done, I used to use a low-cal spray, and we were finding they were killing all our frying pans, and we've gone out and bought a frying pan now that doesn't need any oil in it whatsoever. So when we do fry, we fry stuff, or Becky does, I don't, in a paper, and we don't put any oil in there. So it's looking at how you can reduce that fat in your cooking methods. And if you're eating out, or if you're cooking yourself and you're looking for sauces on your food, then it's about using a tomato-based or a low-fat sauce rather than a butter or cream. And butter and cream taste really good, but it's actually not what we need it to be doing with you. So all good stuff. Right, okay, a couple more questions come in. Yes, Jane, I'm not very good at cooking. I do, you know, my wife prepares most of my food for me, most of it, not all of it, because she knows if she doesn't prepare my food for me, I'm lazy, and I will be straight at the biscuit cupboard and straight at the crisp cupboard, and I would be the size of a double-decker bus. Perfect. Okay. Right, so moving on swiftly, having covered that, reduce simple sugars. Boom, glucose spike. And what we end up with is the body then an hour later craving again. So you end up going back to the sweet cupboard. I've now got something in my throat, but I'm not having a good night tonight. Sorry, guys. So we try and reduce our simple sugar intake. So again, we're looking for complex carbohydrate, complex sugars in order to be able to provide a natural, slow time course for the carbohydrate to be delivered to the body where we can. He's not shouted up, so I'm guessing he's not online here. But for me, and actually looking what he does, he's not far off with this, but maximum protein needs to be around about 20 to 30 grams per serving. So if you've got an athlete that for whatever reason is a bigger athlete, is trying to bulk up, that needs to gain muscle mass and therefore wants to have more protein in their diet, I would be looking at splitting these protein servings into 6 or 8 or even 10 smaller meals stroke snacks. So you're constantly dripping that in, rather than having one big hit that the body can't cope with and the body can't process. So, you know, that for me is really, really important in the way that we do stuff. Okay, so next one. Okay, are there any, so again, I don't know who this is. Someone's managed to get in anonymously. Fine, that's not an issue whatsoever. Are there any benefits to consuming simple sugars for a quick sugar hit short term, i.e. demolishing a Mars bar post-marathon? Well, if you've just run a marathon, my argument would be for 2 or 3 days afterwards, you just have what you want to, because at that point, you should be on recovery mode. If it's a training session, I would be looking at smarter stuff. I would be looking at something, again, is not going to leave you with a spike. It's not going to make you crashing. So it's doing stuff sensibly. I'd go say, please go back to the webinar that went out 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago on nutrition pre-post exercise. If it's a training session rather than a going out and just, you know, I finished a race, I finished my big event. You know, you finish a big event, you're going to go and get a bag of crisps, you're going to go and get a beer, you're going to go and get whatever floats your boat, and you're going to celebrate. So that idea of having something there, it's a party, it's a celebration, it's different. If it's a long training session, I'd be avoiding that quick sugar hit, or if I'm doing it in naturally occurring foods where possible, rather than just simple have a hit and benefit from that hit. So good stuff. Right, okay, so protein servings, jelly beans mid-run. Again, jelly beans mid-run, that's possible, that's not an issue. Again, go back to the nutrition one that I did pre-post. This is all I want to focus on, is how we get your body weight down. So if your jelly beans mid-run are replacing your gel or replacing your energy drink, that's fine. Again, we've got a very simple sugar, but by that point, you know, the glucose transporters are not being impacted by insulin. It's what goes on once you're not exercising and that sugar hit. And this is here I'm talking about day-on-day basis rather than training. Portion sizes. The thing that most people get wrong is portion sizes. Most people do not have a clue what a portion size is. There was a study done in the Netherlands many, many years ago, and it had some metabolic chambers, metabolic rooms that were sort of 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters, bed, table, what have you. And built into the table, the participants weren't aware of it, but there was a set of scales. And what they found was that people who were able to assess their portion size better and assess how much went on a spoon and how much went into each mouthful were at a much healthier weight than those who were over ideal weight. And those people that are over an ideal weight tended to underreport how frequently they were eating and how much of a portion they were having and how that portion size was impacted. Daniel just asked, how do we measure, or how do I measure body fat? Well, Daniel, I would normally, so for me, I generally use calipers. If you aren't available, which I'm guessing, I don't know you, Daniel, so, but I think you're probably one of my Nigerian chaps, whether you're a London Nigerian or a Nigerian. There are a couple of people I know who have got scales with body fat measurements in them. They're not ideal, but they will start to give you a better understanding of where you are. So something like the Garmin, something like the Withings scales, which put a bioimpedance through. There is a place in Lagos I know that does a body scan, and if you message me afterwards, I can find it, or maybe one of the other guys online. Where I first tested in Lagos, guys, if someone can tell me 2 years ago, in that venue there, they've got a body scanning system in there. So hopefully someone can answer that for us. Louise, is it worth having a DEXA at the additional expense? And I would say probably not, Lou. Although it is absolutely bomb-proof, gold standard. I think, you know, let's be honest, for the level that you and I are at, you're fit, you're healthy. I, at this time, would say, I think we can get enough by me grabbing you with the calipers. And let's try not to do it in a room with a Spanish guy. Sorry. Right, okay, learn to read food labels. Often processed and pre-packaged ready meals often have very, very high fat counts, potentially very high sugar counts, very high salt counts. If you can do, make your own food. Thank you very much. So Ivy has just mentioned, Daniel, eFitness in Victoria Island in Lagos. If you're on Lagos, had a stuku, I think it is called, where they do a body fat scan, and you basically stand with your arms out and they scan you. And again, it isn't giving you a precise value, but it gives you a very good understanding of what's going on there. So answer that one live. Harry, protein shakes. Harry, listen to the video from 2 weeks ago. At the moment, please, I want to focus on weight loss, and unless we're looking at specifically in that, that's where we're at. So let's come back to that. No problems, Daniel. Right, okay. I'm getting waylaid by questions, which isn't a problem at all. Small portions, smaller meal sizes, 4, 5, 6 meals a day, you're constantly grazing, rather than massive break food, a plate of food as we've got here, go stuff it all in, absolutely stuffed. You are better to eat small and often. Don't let your body get to the point that it goes hungry, so that you're constantly grazing, you're constantly getting food coming in on a slow basis. By doing that, again, you'll keep a much steadier blood glucose level. You don't get any dips, you don't get any troughs, you don't then suddenly get any cravings. So if we can get that right, again, this is another way that we can ensure that you stay on top of things. And so again, I will answer your question now, Harry, about protein shakes. If you are looking at what you're doing pre, during and post-training, the strategy pre, during and post-training is absolutely critical, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to come off a training session and then not eat anything for 2 hours afterwards, and then suddenly want to rip the fridge door off because you're absolutely starving. So in that case, something like your protein, your recovery drinks are absolutely essential. If I come back to, which I think is probably where you made your point here, if I come back to this maximum protein serving here, sometimes for convenience, using a whey protein, and again, if Kane was on, I'm sure he'll shout up the one that he uses, using a whey protein to supplement your protein intake to get to your targeted protein can be an effective way of doing it. So if that's what you mean about it, then you know, that's where we're coming onto it. Right, eat smart and slowly. Okay. A lot of us will sit watching some idiot talking to you on a webinar, or we'll sit with a telly on or the computer on, and they're just shoveling food in and they're not listening to their body. Slow down your eating, try and turn off the external stimulus. And if you can turn off the external stimulus, and you can eat slowly and you can chew your meal properly, it actually gives the receptors in your brain sufficient time to register that your stomach is actually getting full. And when you get full, just because there's 2 slices of pizza left on the plate, stop. Give it 10 minutes. And if you still feel hungry after 10 minutes, you think, do I still really need that? Or do I need to go and top up my glass and drink more? You know, and that's what we've got to think about. There are so many of us. I can inhale a sandwich on the hoof. You know, sometimes I have less than 5 minutes between clients and I've not eaten and I'm hungry, so I just, it's gone, it's vanished. That isn't ideal, because it doesn't give our body time to slow down and process the food that is on board. Okay, I'm going to just bin out some of these questions here. The shake question, Stuart. If the end of the training session late and the family, yeah, recovery shake is easier to crash on. But again, you've just got to be careful about where it's done. And I'll come on to another strategy that you might want to do if you're trying to get your body weight down. So avoid eating late. Sometimes because of shift work you have to, sometimes because of training you have to. So what do we do in this situation? Ideally, you balance your day. Ideally, if you know that you're working late or you're training late and therefore you're not going to be able to eat until 8:30, 9 o'clock, even, anything after 6:37. I'd say 7's probably the cutoff. After 7, the situation gets worse. Your body, its metabolism is slowing down. It's trying to slow you down for the night and give you a good sleep. So, of course, what we're going to end up doing is if we eat late, we're throwing a whole load of food in that the body can't process. So Stuart's just come off his training session. He's finished his training session at 9:30 at night. What do? Yeah, you can have a protein shake. You can put some energy back in. Do you want too much carbs in that? Debatable. Depends what your plan is tomorrow. And I've got a slide coming up in a minute, and I can't tell you how many slides down the way it is because my brain is now scrambled. There's a strategy that we can talk about calling sleep low, where actually you finish your training session late at night, and then what you would do is you would have a very, very small amount of protein, 15, 20 grams of protein, probably no carbs whatsoever, and off you go to bed. And the next morning, you will have slept and the body will have scavenged all the carbs that it can do, and you'll notice that overnight you will have actually lost weight quite substantially. Now, again, it's a delicate balance about how often you do this, how frequently you do this, because you can overdo a good thing and you can compromise your body. So, of course, if you're trying to do fasted rides in the morning and you try and do a sleep low strategy in the evening, where are you going to get your food coming through? So it's something that you can add for an athlete, or something that I would add for an athlete and advise an athlete to do cautiously when we need to. If you can do, reduce alcohol intake. Alcohol, empty calories, is not really adding much to the nutrition that we're doing. So from that point of view, do we need it? Now, again, having a glass of wine, having a beer on a Friday night, Saturday night, a lot of people, that's fine. There's no issues with that whatsoever. Having 5 or 6 beers on a Friday night and 5 or 6 beers on a Saturday night is probably slightly overdoing it. And when you're in the final run into your competition, whether it's 4 weeks out, whether it's 6 weeks out, whether it's 12 weeks out, you might go, you know what, I'm just going to cut alcohol out of my diet. And what I tend to do, again, when I give someone a dietary breakdown, if they want to have a glass of wine, if they want to have a beer in there, I will take the calories from that alcoholic drink from their fat calories. So they have to eat really smart to be allowed to have that drink in there. Right. I said I didn't want to go too much into training because I did that a couple of weeks back, but feed immediately during training. So as you're training, make sure you get enough hydration on board, make sure you get enough carbs on board, and then immediately afterwards. So as you finish your training session, get your carbs on board, because the problem is if you don't, you'll get home, you'll rip the fridge open, and you will just consume anything that's in there, and you will consume anything that's in there without really much thought. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it's 3-week-old pizza, whether it's high fat, whether it's loads of sugar, you will just go, I'm starving, I want to eat. So you like the honey monster, I just want to stuff my face. And you don't think about it, you don't make smart choices, then you throw all this extra energy into the body that you just spent the last however many minutes, hours training to get rid of, and body can't cope with it. And what does it do? Oh, there's lots of food coming in here, we can't restore all this as glycogen, we can't restore it all as carbs. It's going to convert it and store it as fat. So what you're trying to do by constantly going out and training low, training early morning, training with water only in your bottle will lead you to a scenario that you'll come back and you will be craving so badly that it's then very, very hard to stay on top of those cravings and make sure that you're looking after your body as effectively as you should do. Okay. Other factors, mix your dietary habits. Lots of colours, lots of greenery, lots of reds, lots of pinks, lots of different colours coming through. The more variety you've got in your diet, the more likely you are to get your vitamin mix, your mineral mix, your sodiums, your potassiums, and you're then going to end up not necessarily craving anything. So something of everything is good. In my mind, there is no such thing as a bad food. chocolate's not bad, alcohol's not bad, sweets aren't bad. It's doing it in moderation. It's doing it as a treat. It's doing it as, instead of eating that whole 200-gram bar of chocolate, I'm going to have 2 pieces of chocolate because I want a treat and I've deserved it. But as long as that 2 pieces doesn't become 2 bars. So again, it's doing everything in moderation. It's giving yourself that variety. If you're craving something, the chances are, you haven't got those nutrients in, and we've got to get those nutrients right. So by cutting back too much on your diet, you can actually cut back. And again, there's a debate here where I'm not a big fan of vitamins and minerals. However, if you're cutting back on your diet to have a vitamin and mineral supplement in your diet to boost what you're missing, can potentially, bring you back on board to where you should be. But you mustn't undereat. So we've got Rasmussen here. Right, okay. Neil, I'm going to come on to fasted rides in a minute. So yes, fasted rides are okay, but doing too many fasted rides aren't, and we're going to come on to that in a minute. So yeah, apologies, and I probably did confuse you. Right, don't undereat. So we've got Rasmussen here, who is probably drugged up to the eyeballs in this photo. But the problem you've got is if you undereat, you will go through the body's carbohydrate store, and then if there's not enough carbs on board, where you think, I'll start to reduce fat mass down. No, you don't. You start to reduce muscle mass down. And obviously that is then going to compromise your performance. So you're going to end up with less power, less speed. You're going to end up with greater fatigue levels. You're going to end up with increased risk of immune suppression, increased risk of injury, increased risk of illness. And, this lower body fat, lower compromised muscle mass, can lead to long-term imbalances in metabolic function, and therefore long-term illness and health issues. So, you've got to be really careful that you don't undereat. So, this idea of going on these crazy diets where, people will eat 800 calories a day for, weeks on end. Again, if we're talking about somebody that's in a pre-diabetic state and it's done under medical supervision and they've got all the right balance of vitamins and minerals and so on and so forth, okay, that's fine, I get that, but I'm not. I'm talking to you guys as individuals who exercise anything from 2 hours a week to 20 hours a week. You cannot undereat. You cannot go and put yourself on a massive suppression of nutrients, because you will not get out the other side of it alive. And, in one sense, I really should put some slides in about Red S here. I don't want to, it sort of doesn't muddy the water, but it's probably going into a level of depth that I don't need for you guys. But most importantly, if you undereat, your metabolism will be suppressed and ultimately you won't lose weight. So it's about losing weight sensibly. It's about losing weight steadily. And as I said before, in an ideal world, and it takes a long time to achieve it, we want to be looking at about 0.4 of a kilo per week weight loss, about a pound a week. And so we look to achieve that over a long term. Now, these guys here are using a bod pod system here, and this is actually a study where you can see they're comparing a bod pod. They've got various bioimpedance systems here. They've got another computer-based bioimpedance system here, and they're looking at what all these different range of scales are giving. Now, at the end of the day, I would say to you, hierarchy. DEXA is probably our best method. I then prefer calipers over a bioimpedance system, although I've got a very, very good and a very expensive bioimpedance system, a body stat. The medical version of those are £3,500 to do your body fat. So that's a lot of money, and that will tell us about intracellular and extracellular fluid. But at the end of the day, if you've gone out and you spend £50 or £100 on a set of Garmin's or Withings scales, and as long as you're getting consistent values day on day and you're not getting massively widely variable values, you can use that as a tracker of what's going on. Now, it might not be exactly the right body fat percentage for you, but it's taking you in the right direction. And you stand naked in front of the mirror and you bounce up and down. You see what wobbles this week and wasn't 2 weeks ago. And often people will pick up on you that you're getting lean in the face, and you'll see your arms leaning off. So you can see that happening, or other people will see it happening in you. And there'll be the stubborn bits. It'll be the belly that will be the last thing to go. Potentially in the ladies, it might be the thighs that are the last things to go. But over time, if you get this balance right, we should be able to get that slow and steady progress. So, these are all things that are really important. So that's the nutrition side of things. Now, for me, it's not just about nutrition. I don't want to just constantly be on a diet. I don't want to be constantly starving myself. And Neil, this is where I want to start thinking about, what do we do in training? How do we assess? How do we put the two things together? So it isn't just about going out and training more. For me, crucially, it's about knowing our metabolic profile. So get you into the lab, face mask on. I thought I had one here, but again, I've left it next door. Face mask on, looking at breathing responses, looking at what's going on. So, what we're seeing here, we're seeing on a breath by breath basis here, what's going on. So, it's really key that I get you into the lab if you want a true understanding where you are, because I can get a true body fat with you, and we can really have a much better understanding of your metabolic profile. And this is a typical runner profile here. And again, I won't go into much detail because a fortnight ago I went into this ad nauseum. But what we've got is we've got oxygen uptake, we've got carbon dioxide production here. And when I've got oxygen above carbon dioxide, I know that the body is metabolizing fat as a fuel. When we've got into a situation here where these two lines are sitting one on top of the other, I know all you're doing is burning carbohydrate, 100% carbohydrate. When we've gone up here, all we're doing is we're burning 100% carbohydrate, but the carbon dioxide is through the roof. We're burning through that carbohydrate now really, really, really rapidly. So there's no fat burning going on beyond this threshold point. There's fat burning going on down here. So if I can overlay that with a heart rate profile, then I can see what heart rate, what power output you need to be operating at to metabolize fat as a fuel. And we've taken that into a fat burn assessment, which basically I've taken on board for Kane and the guys at GB Fitness. And effectively, this is a walk-run protocol for, I'll say, non-endurance athletes, although we can do it with endurance athletes. And the crucial thing that we're looking at here is that what we're trying to find is in this green line here, we're looking at fat burn and how many calories are coming from fat. And what we can see for this specific example of an athlete here, this individual's maximum heart rate was just below 180, probably about 178. But if we look at the heart rate profile here, we can see that heart rate's going up in quite a linear fashion. Then we've got a slight inflection in the heart rate as the fat burning shut down completely. Their peak heart rate, their peak fat metabolism here, which is around about 220 calories per hour, is occurring for this individual here at a heart rate of around about 100 to probably no more than 105. So actually, if you've got a max for this individual, it's not for you, it's as this individual as an example. And the problem is everybody's profile is different. Everyone's heart rate profile is different. Every fat metabolism profile is different according to their training status, their age, their gender, their diet, their normal lifestyle, their normal habits, the training they've been doing. Everyone's profile is different. And there isn't, stick a finger in the eye and go, oh, let's use math for tone. 180 minus your age. Well, 180 minus this guy's age. He's 40. We'd have had him here. And at 140, oh, how much fat burning is going on? Bugger all. Absolutely none whatsoever. So if this guy's trying to lose weight, my fat metabolism, this person actually needs to be at peak fat burn here at a heart rate of 100 to 105. We can only do that by getting you in for a lab assessment. Now, I'm waiting on Boris, and I'm hoping that within the next fortnight to few weeks, I can get you into the lab. I will be able to start doing this with you as a fat assessment in order to get weight down. But if I can't, or if you don't want to do that, if that's not right for you, we can do a similar sort of thing by looking at your performance protocol here. So it's about understanding the way your body works. We can't guesstimate it. There's no way that your Garmin can tell you it, or your Polar can tell you it, or if you walk or run at a certain rate. This isn't something that there's a guesstimate for. This is something that can only be measured. And we generally said the lower you exercise, the lower intensity exercise you go for, the better that we're going to be. So it's about using that watch and it's training smarter, not harder. And going out with a profile where your heart rates are all over the place doesn't do what we need it to. It really doesn't push the body in the way that we want. We can see here, this profile is taking this heart rate in a nice wide spread. What I need my athletes to do is I need them to go out in a steady rate. So this particular athlete here was gone out for an hour and a half ride. They've stayed within that endurance range for them. And notice here, for this athlete, that endurance range is a range of around 150 to 155. And actually, they've now spent 80% of their time in the training zone. So by training somebody, there's two things I can do here. I can say to this guy, if you can go out and you can spend 80% of your time in your training zone and you're doing 6 hours of training a week, I know that I've got 5 hours of training from you that's in the right zone. Brilliant stuff. And if I get the right training zone, I've now got 5 hours, which is focusing not entirely, but quite a lot on fat metabolism. So if we get the balance of nutrients in and we get the training right, over time, we're going to see weight loss occurring without necessarily focusing on it too extremely. That's on a 6 hour training week. Here, to get the same heart rate banding, with the heart rate going up and down here, they're only 25% of the time in the training zone. So to get the equivalent of 5 hours of good training, this athlete has to be doing 20 hours a week. They can't recover from that. They need to start shoving a whole load of food. The body can't cope with it. So actually quite often, I will take my athletes and I will drop their training. So the photo of Jason that I showed you right at the start of the seminar, he got all the weight loss. He got great Ironman performances by actually reducing his training capacity, his training intensity, compared to what everyone else was doing. So it's, in one sense, that's a real mind warp of, hang on a minute, if I train less and I train easier, I'm going to be a fitter athlete. That doesn't make sense. But I can show people time and time and time again, if we get the right training zone and we can focus on endurance and we can focus on fat metabolism and you're smart with your training sessions, you can do 4 to 8 hours a week and you're going to achieve weight loss, and you're going to achieve weight loss rather than going out and doing high intensity intermittent training all the time. You're going to achieve weight loss, you're going to build your cardiovascular engine, and you're going to go faster. And this is the crucial bit. But again, it's not that there isn't guesswork in this. There isn't a stick your finger in the air and go, oh, my FTP is this, therefore I want to be at that zone, or my peak's that, so therefore I want to be at that zone. No, this is about knowing what your measurements are and being precise about what your measurements are. If we can't be precise about your measurements, you can still get the same impact, but it's about getting the balance just right, and it's about being smart about stuff. So this is about how effective your training is. And then you've gone out and you've done a training session, you've trained really well, and you've gone, parkrun on Saturday morning, we're going to have post-parkrun cakes. Well, you've just gone and you've done a 2 or 3K warm-up, you've gone and blitzed yourself for 5Ks, you've done a 2K warm-down, and now you're going to shovel a whole load of cake down your neck. Well, why? Because you've just undone everything that's good. Or you've gone out for a 3-4 hour bike ride on the club on a Sunday morning, and after 2 hours you stop for bloody tea and cakes. You're just screwing up your metabolism, you're slowing the body down, you're taking the opportunity for your body to metabolize what you're trying to away from itself. Right, another question has come through. Yeah, Mark's just said 25 hours. It's 20 hours zone 1 and 2, and 5 hours working on 80-20 rule. So there's so many ways of doing it. Mark Shepherd is a nut, which I'm going to quite happily say out loud and alive. I love him to bits. He's a great client. He's a very good coach as well. So he coaches people to a very high standard. He comes in to use me for my tests to see what's going right and what's going wrong. And I still look at Mark and go, Mark, how did you get away with those volumes you do? And I think, Mark is, podium level or very close to it at European Duathlon Champs this year. So, I'm looking at someone that's not really an amateur athlete. I'm effectively looking at someone that's an elite athlete, which is why you can get away with the training volumes you do, Mark. Right, okay, back onto the cakes. So stopping for a cake ride, having cakes after your training session, you've just undone all the good. So you finish that ride and you eat sensibly. So again, that probably comes back to, and I can't remember who made the comment about the Mars bar earlier. If it's a marathon, if you've just finished a race, if that was your peak event, yeah, you go and splash out. But if you've just gone out and you've done a 2-hour training run on a Sunday and the marathon's not for another 8, 10, 12 weeks down the line, forget that Mars bar. You want sensible nutrition, you want a bit of protein, you want a bit of carbs, you want a recovery drink to get the body replenished immediately, and then you want to eat normally 2 hours later. So listen to the webinar from a fortnight back. Right, fasted sessions. Neil, fasted sessions. So consider fasted sessions. And so, and again, Adiola, this is what you said very, very much earlier. I've kept your question, both of these questions open. So fasted sessions, you fall out of bed first thing in the morning, and you will go and exercise without having breakfast. Some people might have a strong coffee because it's suggested that that boosts fat metabolism. I don't do coffee, so I don't bother with it. How often should you do it? Well, the evidence again is not really that strong one way or another. But what it does suggest to us is that you shouldn't be doing a fasted session every single session, because your body needs that nutrient and it needs to get used to what's going on. So if you're doing all your training in the morning, and again, we've got to consider, what do we mean by a fasted session? So for me, it might be, I fall out of bed, I nip to the bathroom, I get my training kit on, and then I'm either out for a run out the front door or I'm on the turbo. And some of those sessions will be, I'll do the first 20 minutes, half an hour, and I'll be consuming water only. And for that, then I might hit the carbs. And for other of the session, I might be on water the whole way through that session. So again, we've got to look at what we're trying to do, and we've got to look at it in the bigger picture. So for both of you, and you've both asked the same question, fasted cardio should speed up your weight loss adiaula. And again, if we look at the metabolic, the fat profile that I just showed you now, doing hour and a half of low intensity walking, cycling, in the right fat burn zone, that it's pushing the body too hard, is a great way to get the fat off. Neil, if we're a cyclist, and Adiola, I know you ride, if you suddenly find the exercise intensity is going up during the session, you're working much harder than you should be, you've got to get carbs in there, because otherwise you're going to finish the session and you're going to be that ruined that you're not going to be recovered for either a ride later in the day or a ride the following day. So quite often for my athletes, where we're trying to either boost endurance, and there's some evidence that doing double sessions in the day boosts endurance metabolism, or we're trying to reduce body fat, I will quite often have a morning fasted session, but it might only be 20 minutes to 45 minutes. Infrequently, I might say to an athlete, right, Sunday morning ride, you're going to go out and you're going to go out on water, and you want to stay on water for the first hour to 2 hours, and you're going out for 3 or 4. So they get used to feeling what it feels like to ride with no energy on board. So again, hopefully that's answered your questions. But you can have too much of a good thing. So if every session is done fasted, it's too much for the body. Okay. And again, we spoke about sleep low, and I think there might be a slide coming up on sleep low in a minute. Occasionally, where I've been pushing my weight loss, I've done a sleep low session. So I've trained in the evening. I've done an hour and a half in the evening. I've had my carbs during my session, but I've finished my session. I've had a small amount of protein. I've gone to bed. I've woken up the next morning, and then I've done a 20-minute, half an hour fasted ride the next morning to really, really push the fat metabolism for that 12-hour period. But then after that, I've made sure that I've got good nutrition then for the rest of the day. So it's a balance. There's with all of this, there's no one size fits all. I don't have a regimented, breakfast, lunch, evening meal. It's a system of what works for you. How do we move that around? How do we move your calories around for your lifestyle? If you're always having to ride in the morning, and I know Adiola, you do, you Nigerian guys, you do a lot of your riding in the morning purely because the temperatures and the roads are safer and so on and so forward. If all of your riding's got to be done in the morning, well, you don't want to be getting up and eating 2 hours before, but it doesn't mean you can't be having a light snack as you walk out the door, as you ride out the door. So you don't have to do all of those sessions fasted. We look at a strategy. So hopefully for both of you, that's answered those. Done. I hit those as done. Wow, I'm doing well on my questions so far. I've done 25 questions. Right. Okay, Hakeem. Low intensity, steady state cardio or HIIT for weight loss. Oh my goodness. There are several people that would line you up against the wall and shoot you. In my book, and in several other people's book who I think hopefully are online this evening, HIIT training, in my mind, does not achieve weight loss. HIIT training absolutely strips out your glycogen, breaks down muscle mass, and if you do not replenish the energy properly, you are not going to get fat loss. If you're looking for effective weight loss, we really shouldn't be talking about weight loss. We should be talking about reducing body fat. The only way to effectively reduce body fat is to work at a low intensity, steady state exercise. So your low intensity cardio that will then burn that fat. So the people that promote HIIT training, in my mind, are charlatans that are trying to sell a different concept, that are trying to sell something. And for most people, where they're seeing the weight loss coming through HIIT is because they're now doing exercise at a much higher intensity than they wouldn't have been doing before. They want that 10, 15 minutes of exercise because they want a short answer to everything. They're not prepared to go for a walk for an hour and a half, or sit on a bike for, an hour to 2 hours at a low intensity to get what is true fat metabolism, true fat burning. So no, HIIT training, avoid it. It's not going to give you the fat loss that you want. So that's done. So you get up, Stuart, sorry, if you get up, is it beneficial to fast early for a couple of hours and then food? This whole concept about intermittent fasting, I've not got my head around it yet at the moment. I said to you before, I'm much rather in a situation where I think if you get up and you have a couple of hours where you fast, and whether it's intermittent fasting, whether it's extended fasting, right, sorry, you're thinking about fasting, right, but I want to talk fasting at the moment because it's a big concept out there at the moment. One of my problems is that you leave your body compromised for later on, so you end up playing catch up, and therefore you end up putting too much food into the body at one point. If you're thinking about a fasted ride, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You either, you get up, if you're going to ride at 8 o'clock in the morning, you fall out of bed at 6, you have a light breakfast and you ride at 8, so you have food a couple of hours before. Again, I'm going to direct you back to go and watch the nutrition one, the pre, post and during one from 4 weeks ago, because that was all about this. However, it's not a problem for you to fall out of bed because you're riding at 6:37 in the morning. You don't want to get up at 4:35 to eat. Or my Nigerian friends that are all riding between 4 and 5 in the morning, or 4 and 5:30 in the morning, they're not going to get up at 3 and eat. So basically, as you've fallen out of bed, you go to the bathroom, you put your kit on, you would eat something as you're walking out the door to go and start riding. You just have a small snack, whether it's a small energy bar, whether it's a piece of fruit, something that you find that sits quite light on the stomach. And again, it's finding what works for you in that scenario. So hopefully that's answered that for you. That's done. Gary, circadian rhythm fast. Gary, I'm not convinced about fasting. I'd like to see more evidence of it. I'd like to see more research done on it, rather than, it's a great concept and there's lots of people coming through, and I'll hold my hand up and go, I have not read enough about it, and I've not seen enough scientific evidence, scientific research that promotes it as a possible solution. So I don't really want to stick my neck out either way on that, but I'd say at the moment, generally, not a big fan of fasting. Right, sleep hungry, so sleep low. So, if you train at night, small protein snack to give yourself that bit of recovery, go to bed, and then you follow the normal day the next day, or you're getting up and you're doing a fasted ride to give yourself a double header. Try it, see if it works for you. Some people doesn't work for. Some people find that if they've trained at night, they then can't get to bed. So again, in that case, you would maybe have a small protein hit rather than too much carbs, because again, the carbs can't be processed. Find what works for you. It's a delicate balance with all of this stuff. All the way through this, I've been saying to you, we're talking about a balancing act here. Weight management is a balancing act. Energy intake needs to go down. Energy expenditure needs to go up to get the weight loss that we're looking for. And yes, it is that simple. And it's how we achieve that. Some people, achieve it by veganism. Some people achieve it by, low carbs, high fat. But you're athletes. I want you to have a good, well-rounded diet. I don't mind whether you're plant-based. I don't mind what you're doing. But in my mind, if you look at what the information I showed you last week, and a fortnight ago and 4 weeks ago, all about what the body uses when it's doing endurance exercise, even low-intensity steady-state endurance exercise, the majority of the energy is coming from carbohydrates. We need to replenish that carbohydrate. We can't strip down on carbs. I am talking to, I'm assuming, are an athletic population. That's why you're listening to me. You're not a sedentary individual. I might be talking something completely different as a sedentary individual, but as an exercising individual, it's important that we keep that energy intake good and sensible and get that balance just right. So It's coming back to Jason, just to throw it in again at the end there. You know, look at what you can achieve. He's even leaner and meaner than that at the moment. But for a runner, every kilo that you can reduce of fat mass or body weight overall is worth 2 minutes over marathon distance. I'm sat here tonight talking to you, and I'm 11 kilos over where I was in that first photo that I showed you. 11 kilos. That is a massive, massive performance impact I'm taking. And most people look at me and go, but you're skinny. I'm not skinny. I've got a lot around here that I don't want to. At the moment, I've got big legs that I don't want to. Yeah, my face is reasonably lean, but I'm not ripped at the moment. And I'm not going to ever turn into that bodybuilder definition of being ripped. That's not what it's about. And likewise on the bike, when we're climbing, we've got power to weight ratio. Now, again, if you lose too much muscle mass, you'll lose power. And we don't want you to lose power because we don't want your power to weight to be compromised. We don't want your climbing, your acceleration to be compromised. So it's finding that delicate balance. So key thoughts: practice optimal nutrition strategies and training. Try sleep low, try fasted sessions in the morning. Look at what you're doing. Look at seeing how changing your nutrition intake on a day-on-day basis impacts on what's going on with your weight. Weigh yourself every morning. Now, it's not your day-on-day weight that you need to be really that worried about. You need to look at your weight post the rest day, because that's when you should be at your heaviest. That's where you're tracking week on week. Post-exercise nutrition is vital. I've not really gone into that, but you know, this is the key for me, is that if you don't get your post-exercise nutrition right, you will be starving. You'll rip the fridge door off. You'll be like a bear with a sore head all day. You will struggle to keep on track. So if you miss your post-exercise nutrition, you'll find it much harder to get the rest of the strategies right. It's really important that you assess and monitor portion size. And again, because my head was spinning a little bit earlier, you know, one of the things that I would say to people, and I didn't say it as we were going through, is track, there we go, this always comes up after a little while, track portion sizes for a couple of days. Use your phone, use MyFitnessPal, weigh everything, measure everything. You know, be anal, put your bowl on the scales in the morning, pour in what you think your typical cereal portion is, and weigh it and go, flipping heck, it's 2 or 3 times more than it says as a recommended portion on the packet. You know, look at what a portion size is. Move towards getting those portion sizes right. That's one of the things that people make the biggest issue. Portion size. The final thing is look at optimal nutrition, focused weight, to achieve that optimal training. And at that same point, someone's put losing weight in line with BMI recommendation. Is that okay as a guide, or it's not advisable? Well, bizarrely, even when I'm lean, my BMI puts me above average. And I'm not going to flick all the way back to that slide right at the start, because I'm going to show you some other stuff in a minute. But when I was at 70 kilos, because I've got a lot of muscle mass, my BMI put me as being above normal. Didn't even put me as being lean. And yet I can promise you there was not an ounce of fat to come off me when I turned up at World Champs that year. And it's likewise, you know, you go and look at the bodybuilders, and you go and look at a rugby player that's lean and fit and athletic, BMI will go, nah. It's again, as a normal, non-exercising, yeah, Mark's just posted up, and I don't know if people can see this. Mark's posted up his BMI at 72 kilos. I'm not sure what his body fat will be at the time, but it will be much less. It's probably about 8% or lower, but his BMI at 8% at 72 kilos is 23.5, you know, which is, it's not off the Richter scale, but it's well above what would be considered to be advisable. So I don't use BMI. I get my calipers out, I get my body stat out, I look at doing things from a scientific point of view. As a non-exercising individual, BMI gives a GP an understanding of how overweight somebody is, and it gives a simple target for them to understand. But we're not that. We want to go a bit more scientific and a bit more in depth. So, right, okay, so what I can do for you, as just pointed out, and that wasn't a plant, that question, I can do the nutritional analysis. So, you know, we can look at your body fat percentage, and I can set your dietary requirements. Now, I can't, obviously, currently, because of regulation, I can't currently do a body fat percentage, but if you want me to do a sporting dietary requirement, either for what you're currently doing or in order to achieve weight loss, please message me. We will be sending everyone that's come along tonight an email to say thank you. So if you want me to do that, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to chat to you about how we do that. Obviously, as soon as we can open up, we've got the physiological assessment, which will then look at all the variety of what's going on, particularly your key metabolism, so what your fat burning is doing, what carbohydrate burning is doing, and I can do Kane's protocol for you as well, and Kane, I know, will be sending some of the athletes to me in order to look at where your fat peak is, and looking at that from a not quite a performance protocol, but looking at a more weight loss protocol, so that can be done for you as well. And then we can look at training program design, and we can look at endurance coaching. So, that tonight, and thank you all for your patience. We've still got over 50 of you on board, which is absolutely fabulous. Thank you very, very, very much for hanging on in with me. In all the weeks of doing this, I've not had Wi-Fi issues, and maybe I should have been warned that I should have reset my router before I started. But okay, so Ross has said, would it be different from running to cycling? No, it wouldn't, Ross. The guidelines are pretty much similar. I'm not sure what that specifically came to, because it come through as a chat question. So thank you for coming tonight. This will be pieced together, hopefully, and put on YouTube in the next 24 to 48 hours. It might take some sewing together in order to make this sensible for you guys. Please, if you've enjoyed it, there's the link up here, and I've also put it in the chat panel, so coffee.com/sportstest. If you feel likewise inclined, and as I say, I know I've taken a lot more of your time tonight than I was intending to, but buy me a coffee or two to say thank you. It's much appreciated. As I say, we're currently waiting on Boris and to let me know that I can start testing. The regime that I will be applying for people who are here in the UK who want testing, if you are currently one of my athletes who is coached, I will be opening my diary to you guys first and foremost, and that will be open for a day or two for you to get your bookings in. Then people who have purchased gift vouchers for me. So if you're desperate to come in for a test, I've added a link into the chat box there. So click on that link, and that will allow you to purchase a gift voucher. I will then contact you next before I open my diary as a free-for-all. And again, you will have a 24 to 48 hour advantage to anybody that wants to book a consultation. If you just want to book a free chat with me, 30-minute consultation, the other web address up there is portal.sportstest.co.uk, and follow the link, and I will be able to offer 30 minutes of my time to have a chat through, no obligation, no sales pitch, nothing like that, to try and help you out. Obviously, it'd be great if you decide that you want to come in and have a test with me, because that's what this is all about. These last two webinars have been a bit of a rocky ride for some. Hopefully the next one will be a lot better in terms of technical problems. I'm not quite sure at the moment what the topic will be. I've got a couple of topics up my sleeve, but if you want to make sure that you don't miss it, please subscribe. And again, in that chat box there, I have popped that. So far I have answered 31 questions this evening. Jane has just posted a question or a comment. Not an athlete, but I'm understanding some of the primary concepts of this and to help her lose weight for general health reasons. Thank you, Claire. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jane. Much appreciated. So if anyone else has got questions, I will hang around for the next 5 minutes or so until it all goes quiet. Neil, 11 p.m. Then Neil, not sure. Oh, Neil, you must be one of one of the Spanish crew, one of Neil Cocking's crew that we were meant to be coming out and visiting in March, but of course everything went pear-shaped. Annabelle, Dan, great to see you. Tony, thank you for coming on board. Likewise, Paul, thank you very much, everyone, for coming along, as I say, and putting up with what has been a slightly rocky ride this evening. As I say, feel free to reach out to me directly if you either want a body composition analysis doing, sorry, not a body, a nutritional analysis doing, or you want to get in to come and see me for a test. Tony, what about yours? Higher fat and protein sent in early. I think I probably thought I'd answered that, but let me just flick through and just check what it was. Right, okay. Right, what do I think about the current trend of higher fat and protein periodized to relative training intensity and fat burning? One of the big advocates is Barry Murray. So, I know guys that have been to see Barry. Initially, they found it worked for them, and then they found it all went pear-shaped after about 3 or 4 weeks. It's difficult. It really is difficult. I'm still not convinced about having too much fat in your diet because of the health implications of having that excess fat in your diet. Now, again, Barry was working with the guys, as you say, the likes of BMC, and, those guys are on the bike for 20 to 30 hours a week, and they've got a nutritionist that's looking at their diet and every single thing that they're eating, virtually on a gram by gram basis. And in that situation, I think probably the higher fat is fine. But actually, if you're only doing, and I know at the moment, Tony, you're doing a bit more than this, but if you're only doing 8 to 12 hours a week, I'm not convinced that higher fat is critical, and I'm not convinced at the moment that higher fat intake, 20 hours a week. I'm not convinced that higher fat intake is brilliantly sensible for you. So, whilst I might not advocate stupidly low fat, I would be probably saying still you want 20% of your dietary composition. So we'd need to look at how many calories you're burning in a week, and then work all that back out and come back to, where typically we might consider a low fat intake for a male to be 40 to 60 grams and a low fat intake for a female to be 80 to 100 grams. It might be that you're actually 120, 150 grams just because of your overall nutrients. So need those carbs indeed. Any other questions from anybody? Again, Martin, thank you for coming along. Still quite a few people on board, unless they've all just gone off to watch EastEnders. Again, guys, thank you once again for all your patience and understanding of all the issues that we had. I've been cheeky. I posted the links again for gift vouchers. Ken, where can you find a price for the test? Drop me a message and I will have a chat with you. Depends on what you're up to, what you're after. So as a standard bike or run test, it's at the moment, and it will be going up because of increased costs with not being able to see so many people and PPE and so on and so forth. It will be going up from September the 1st, but at the moment a single sport bike or run is £195. A 5-hour tri test is £375. If you're looking to get the metabolic profiling test done, that's a much shorter appointment, and it's a bit more about just giving you numbers and not quite sending you on your way. But again, that depends on whether it's priced through me or priced through Kane. But please feel to reach out to me directly, and I can talk to you specifically about your needs and what might help. Ete, lovely to have you on board. Thank you for joining us.